You're listening to the Arden University podcast with Alicia
and Kate, your hosts.
Join us as we talk with students, academics and other guests
about topical issues and subject matters connected to your studies. Well, hello everyone and welcome back to yet another episode of the Arden University podcast. We're glad that you're back with us, and I'm also very glad that my partner in crime has returned to us. Alicia, you're back.
Thank you.
This makes me very happy.
Oh, I'm sorry for leaving you alone last week. Did you have kind of a good break? Oh, it was lovely. It was very nice having a break, although there was a lot of meetings involved, if I'm being completely honest, so it wasn't much of a break. But work is hard, work is good, work is woohoo! Yeah, so.
But you're back, and that's the main thing. And, you know, it's not the same without you. We had a lovely episode with Camille, but, you know, I do like having you by my side. The kind of topic that we're going with on this episode is we're going to talk a little bit about neurodiversity. So in September, Arden University is kind of putting a bit of a spotlight on equality and diversity. And we really wanted to talk about neurodiversity as a topic and as something that's so important to be discussed. And very much, I think, is being talked about a lot more now, which is fantastic, and it should be. We are joined today by Emma Owen, so she's going to have a discussion with us. So Emma, do you want to introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are?
Okay, yeah, hi, thanks for inviting me. My name's Emma Owen, I'm a lecturer here in psychology at Arden University. I'm here to talk about neurodiversity from my perspective and also, you know, what the directions are, I think, within HE.
So do we want to do some quick fire questions in order to get to know you, Emma, or would you like to go straight into the big questions?
No, that's fine. We can do some quick fire questions, that's fine.
All right. First quick fire question. What is your favourite colour? We're getting deep.
Red.
Red. Ooh. I like it. Most people say like green or blue or something like that.
I always like to know what someone's favourite snack is.
Oh, favourite snack. Oh, well, I like those, you know, the dried chickpeas. Yeah. Yeah.
Love that. Love those. I always like to ask as well that if you were, you know, you're going to be stuck on a desert island and you could pick one album to take with you or one song to take with you, what would your choice be?
I Will Survive.
That's a really suggestion. Oh, I don't know, actually. I would be having something, I'm really kind of big on kind of relaxation music. So as opposed to a specific song, I would be having, I've got one that I listen to at the moment, which is rainforest sounds. And it's just a thing that kind of recenters me and stuff when I'm kind of stressing out and I have a lot to do. Yeah.
I listen to brown noise so much, especially when I've got my mind running in the evening and I need to go to sleep. Brown noise for an hour. Yeah. I'm out like a light within 10 minutes. It's perfect.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
I only recently discovered different colours of noise. So this is new to me because I was just like, white noise, I don't get on with it. But I've like just discovered different colours of noise because I didn't know that was a thing.
So brown noise is amazing. Great. Pink noise is disgusting and horrible, and blue noise is tolerable, and white noise is like, it's okay if you can't find brown noise. That's how roughly it goes in my head.
Okay, so there's like a ranking. I like
brown is top. Brown is always number one.
Yeah, it is really good. There's a function called Sleep Jar. It's part of Amazon, and that's brilliant. But things like a washing machine, that's not relaxing.
Now, I always have a fan on at night, so I think that's like my...
Oh, that would help, yeah.
That's my noise.
I have one more question that I want to ask, which I think is I think this is a cool question. Okay, so you are allowed to get any one superpower, but you have to give up one of your senses. What superpower would you get, and what sense would you lose?
Wow, okay. What superpower would I get? Probably the ability to know what other people are thinking. I have quite difficulty with this anyway. So that would just be... what would I give up? Possibly my sense of smell because I'm quite sensitive to smell really. So yeah, things bother me that probably shouldn't.
Intriguing. Thank you. I always like hearing those answers. Everyone's got a different answer. No one ever has the same thing. Yeah, I give up taste because I think taste is 80% smell anyway. So I'm like, I'm not really losing one. So work around or something like that.
Ah, that's good. I like that.
Kate, your face is so...
I literally have no idea.
Yeah, for listeners out there, Kate's face is so focused right now trying to come up with her answer. It's really fun to watch.
I genuinely don't know.
It's a good question. It's one which really gets you thinking, which is strange for a superpower question.
I mean, I do know that I would love to be able to teleport. So in my former role before I joined Arden, I used to travel a lot and it was exhausting. But I love the idea of just being able to step through a door and I'm where I need to be. I love that concept, that when I was doing events in Taipei or in Bangkok, that I could just open a door, open my bedroom door and I'd be there. I love that as an idea, but I don't know what I'd give up. That's really hard. That's really, really tough. Maybe smell? I don't know. This has genuinely broken me, and I'm going to have to think about this and bring an answer next time.
All right, so we'll ask the question again next month.
Yeah, ask me next month when I've had a chance to process the fact that I don't actually know the answer to it. And
we'll have a really
regular listeners
amazing
can come back
answer then. Your answer will be an essay of 500 words or 3 pages.
Yeah, that's going to be the topic of the episode. It will just be that. We're not going to talk about anything important. That's going to be the theme of the episode.
That is important. Do not dull down this answer. This is going to be very, very important. But maybe we should, for now, move on to the important things of this month's episode. So
maybe we
should, just for now.
I mean, first of all, we have forgotten to say this, but thank you for joining us, Emma. We do appreciate all of our guests that come on the show and give up their time to come and talk to us.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So probably the first question I will ask you is, can we talk about some of the challenges that you faced and a little bit about your background and your history kind of with your research, with your own experience of neurodiversity, to kind of give us a bit of an idea of what that's been like for you?
Sure, yeah. So in terms of the challenges that I faced, I was diagnosed late. So when I was a student doing my MSc in psychology, I was diagnosed with specific learning difficulties, so dyslexia and dyspraxia. And then in recent years, I was also diagnosed with ADD. So that's an attentive type for ADHD. And last year I was diagnosed as autistic. In terms of some of the challenges I faced, I think it comes from when you are diagnosed. I think you're able to kind of identify why things were difficult throughout your lifespan, and I think the things that I've kind of experienced, obviously everybody experiences this differently, but what I've experienced kind of growing up and study and work is kind of profound difficulties around processing, but also from the social aspect. So, for example, when I was at school, I always felt very different to my peers. I was always very kind of introverted. I struggled to kind of keep up with what was being said. And I think when I was in high school, I really struggled with anxiety. And I think it's not until for me, like I say, everybody's different, until you kind of have that diagnosis, you realise that this has always been what it's about. This is the problem. I experienced what many people do is misdiagnosis originally, because the way these conditions can present is as depression and anxiety. And I think although there is a significant overlap with mental health difficulties, that actually it's just diagnosed as that. and you can take this medication, but it doesn't work because it's not actually that isn't the problem. So yeah, I mean, I always felt very different. I always struggled to be in groups of people. I struggled if it was too noisy. I could be in a busy place for a certain amount of time, then have to kind of step back and have downtime. Like I say, I went back. Well, I went back to study later because I struggled in the final year of school, and I actually went back as a mature student when I was a mother. And I've got two boys. One of them's 19, and the other's 15 now. And in terms of the diagnosis of autism, my son was actually diagnosed first. And again, this is something that's quite common in people who are late diagnosed. Actually, that their children are, and going through the kind of forms, you kind of pick up on difficulties, and it resonates that way. So coming back as a mature student had its challenges with not being diagnosed, but also being a parent as well. I think one of the main issues and barriers is that you feel you really lack confidence in a number of aspects, I think. I felt it with studying, but also in kind of my communication and relations with others. I find it difficult to form relationships. I found it difficult to be able to talk about why that was. So I couldn't put my finger on it. I felt I really kind of lacked the ability to write easily. I tend to my mind tends to jump quite a bit, so I really have to find strategies to manage that. I think, and like I say, everybody experiences it differently, but I think the thing with neurodiversity and the way I experience it is it's like this constant niggling. Your mind just can't see it, but it's like your mind like constantly is active and buzzing. And I was talking to a friend a while ago about this, and sometimes I'll zone out. And the way we describe this is too many tabs. And she was saying, yes, literally and figuratively, that your mind can be preoccupied, and somebody would say, something needs to bring back. I think in terms of, but having a diagnosis for me as a student was really useful, because actually it then provides almost a point to work from. So you can then think, oh, well, okay, this is what it is, other people experience it too. And I think that's the thing about neurodiversity, it can be very isolating. You feel very isolated. I remember talking to somebody else about this, and the way I experience autism is you always feel you're on the inside looking out. You can never actually form that link. It's really hard. And other people see me, for example, as being quiet and reflective, and I don't demonstrate facial expressions as much as I realise other people do. And the way I was explaining is that it's because life generally, to me, it feels very bright, very loud. My attention will be pulled by really small details as I'm talking to somebody. And I said, if I'm slow in responding, or if it seems like I'm not taking it in, it's because it's constantly processing everything around you. So it's like there's too much noise. So you have to kind of home in on what you need to. So it takes a bit longer. I think in terms of so those has been the difficulties. I think in terms of work, I've worked in HE for about 10 years now, and as I said, I was diagnosed late, but I noticed I had specific difficulties. So if I was in a meeting, for example, I would struggle with the pace of the conversation. It would move too quickly. I was still processing what the last person had said, and I struggled to kind of interject what I needed to or formulate a response. I would struggle being in busy office environments. I find that really difficult. It's almost painful in a way. And I think that was hard because people say, well, you can teach. I mean, I'd be able to deliver a lecture to 300 people, but then I would leave them, but I couldn't. I'd go after that, and it's because I know what I'm doing. That's the thing. If it's in a kind of natural give and take in a group environment, I find that really, really hard to do. So these were difficulties, and I think people who are neurodiverse and neurodivergent individual might be more inclined to go in kind of what we deem being non-traditional routes. So come back to education later. And that's what I found, and speaking to other people who are neurodiverse and work in the sector. Yeah. In terms of ways to address that, I still feel like I'm learning strategies. I think having a good network around people who understand the difficulties that you can face, or having the confidence to talk about it, I think really helps. And explaining that, because I think within society there can be some real difficulties in people being able to understand, and people say things like, well, you don't look autistic, and I think I don't really know, what does that even mean? So I was never able to learn to drive, and somebody would say, well, I know another autistic person, they can, and I said it feels so bad, it's because it's saying, well, everybody's different. That's the thing, people have strengths, they have difficulties. I also have co-occurring conditions that make my ability to respond, my decision-making process, or visual processing, speed reactions is harder. So I think that's the thing. I think having the ability to talk about it and actually kind of feeling self-acceptance is massive, and being in an environment where you do feel confident to disclose and say, actually, I'm having real difficulties today, or this is hard for me, and being in that supportive environment, I think, really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, just at this juncture, it's good to mention that, Emma, you very much live this in action. This is not kind of you just saying, oh, you should tell people about it. You are, in every interaction that we've always had, number one, delightful, and number two, you are always kind of very honest about the needs that you have, and I think that you deserve a huge amount of kudos for that, because it can be really difficult. Perfect example was last week. You didn't feel comfortable. We were hoping to record this last week. It didn't feel right. You weren't ready. You hadn't had a chance to process, and you openly admitted that to us, and that for us meant that we were able to do what we could to support you in whatever way that we could, because we would never want to do anything that would make you uncomfortable, but sometimes we don't think to ask the question, and that's something that we need to work on very much, that we need to make that adjustment. But the fact that you are so very honest about it, I just think that can be so incredibly hard for so many people, and I have a huge amount of respect for anyone that struggles with it, because we all struggle with it. But yeah, the respect that I have for you for being very honest is immense.
Oh, thanks so much, Kate. I really appreciate that. That means a lot, and thank you for that. And I really appreciated your responses before, because
and it's so easy, isn't it? It's so easy for those of us to make adjustments where we can. I think that's one of the big things. Just be kind about it. It's not hard to do. Don't say silly things like you don't look autistic. I can't believe people still say that.
Yeah, it's so common. And I think that's the problem with neurodivergence, because it is hidden, and it's like people almost feel like they have to fit into this very kind of neurotypical way of living and way of doing things. And I think the problems that we have within society is society's expectations that we all think and learn and take in information the same way. And I mean, in terms of people, adults who are autistic, I think. I mean, I'll need to check this, but I think the latest statistics demonstrate only 18% of autistic adults are in employment. And I mean, I think there's a number of reasons for that. I still think there's some very good schools. I still think within, schools there isn't that kind of understanding of how neurodiversity presents and actually how the school environment can really impact on young people. It's intense, it's busy, there's nowhere for people to kind of step back and think, I can't do this at the moment. And I think particularly around kind of, for example, exam time, it's the kind of expectation that people take in information in a certain way, or that they can learn in that way. And I think it's everything about being neurodiverse, not identity, that you somehow, that you're less at these things, and it isn't the case. It's just that you do take, that you do absorb information differently, that you might have to do things in a different way, take breaks, be in a different environment. And I think this is where it comes from. Society can be quite unkind at times. And I think it's, and like you say, Kate, it's kindness is key.
I always did find it absolutely ludicrous that we're expected to go into an exam and regurgitate stuff that we've tried to learn over the last few months. And it just doesn't make any sense half the time. Like, how is that learning? How is that, like, being able to do anything like that? And actually retaining that information and putting it out there on a piece of paper in some cohesive thought. Sometimes it's just not a practical way to educate anyone. It's like, it's not education, that's regurgitation, it's a different thing. And I don't know about you, but I certainly wasn't good at that at school. So it's I think you're absolutely right. I think it's very difficult. It's almost like at times the education system says with young people, if you're not this, then you must be this, and it's all kind of focused on achievement in a very kind of specific way, and it's wrong, because it fundamentally kind of maps onto people feeling I'm failing at this, and that's just so unfair. I think at a societal level.
Yeah, I think I've seen it go the other way as well, in terms of if you are succeeding, in inverted commas, traditionally. So if you are, succeeding within that framework of kind of a neurotypical, you get A's, you get A stars, you're handing in your work. If you then do have a neurodiversity, well, you couldn't possibly have a neurodiversity. You're doing well at school. You know what I mean? You can't. And we've got such kind of blinkered thinking about who is and who isn't neurodiverse, what is and isn't success. We've got so many blinkered things that then intersect to create this kind of weird system that doesn't really help anyone, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And I read an article, I read a piece where, because obviously the discussion around neurodiversity has massively exploded in a huge part due to TikTok. I think, it's a lot of the content that I see on my feed. And it was a brilliant piece that said even the kind of allowances that are made in exams for neurodivergent people aren't necessarily appropriate. So giving someone with, let's say, ADHD extra time on an exam doesn't make any difference, because they're still going to put it off potentially if they've got kind of avoidant tendencies. They're still going to put off starting it until that last half an hour if you've given them 2 hours or 4 hours or whatever, let's say. And that maybe would it be more beneficial for certain people that they still have the hour and a half, let's say, that is for everyone else, but they can kind of stop the clock and walk away for 10 minutes to kind of, and then come back, and that we still are using allowances that were set way back when that still don't work for everyone. And we need to kind of, even the places that, the system is trying to improve things, we need to still look at that, because how well is this working? How good of an effect is this having? And a lot of times it's it's not quite right, because probably neurodivergent people aren't involved in that conversation. You know, it's neurotypical people saying that this is what will work to support neurodiverse people, which just is unsurprising and disappointing and insane all at the same time.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, Kate. And I think that's the thing. It needs to come from the perspective of having that lived experience, doesn't it? And kind of having people being able to say, actually, everybody experiences this in a different way, and what works for one person might not work for the next, and it has to be kind of individualized, because I think that you're right that places get that wrong in terms of that this is what we'll do, and this is how we've addressed the adjustments. But I think you're absolutely right, Kate. It does need to be more focused on the individual needs and having people's perspectives at the heart of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Slight topic change, but sort of still along the same lines. So we've been talking a lot about schools and sort of going for more of like after school, after you've got through the education and everything. What kind of potential career opportunities might there be for neurodivergent people, and how could they potentially maximise their employability?
I think in terms of employability, I think there's we need to kind of close the gap for young people kind of coming from school into employment or to the next stage if they want to carry on studying. I think, I personally, even though I had these difficulties at school, like I would perform well, but it was my anxiety, which meant that then I couldn't attend school in the last year. And I think what happens is because of the high level of pupils who are excluded from school, I think it would send 7 times higher young people who are sent are more likely to be excluded. And I was reading that only 3% of those who go into alternative provision will accomplish pass a GCSE. And I think the problem is that schools can present this barrier that black people lack confidence. They think maybe further education, FEHE, isn't for them. I think it's really important that we understand that and say actually most people perform much better at a university because they don't have those kind of difficulties around that quite a forced environment, that actually people can do things in their own time, that they can study remotely, that actually it's finding the pace that works for them if they want to go into education after school for FE and HE. I think in terms of employment, there are so many barriers, and I think that's one of them, that people might not have the qualifications that they need for different reasons, and I think that's definitely something that needs to be looked at. In terms of employment for people who are neurodiverse, I mean everybody's different, and I see a lot of kind of organisations that are opening up saying we're looking to recruit people who are autistic, or and I think this is I think this is good. I think it's really important. I'd be concerned around society thinking that making assumptions that people, for example, who are neurodiverse or autistic, are likely to have kind of heightened abilities in certain areas, because that's not everybody. I mean, I think I can do different things because I have a hyper focus, or I kind of think differently. I tend to think quite creatively, but generally, I remember talking again to a colleague about this, and I said, I know people who are like that. I wish I was. I just think I'm just really super ditzy, to be fair. I just, I think that can be a kind of common misconception. If we go to that as well, isn't a good representation of people, kind of assuming that we would have these heightened abilities in mathematics, for example. I I think that can be quite problematic. In terms of work roles, I mean, speaking from personal experience, I find remote working really good. I really kind of like the flexibility of this. I think, and speaking to friends as well, they also quite, appreciate kind of that working format. Although some people do like the social interaction, the face to face. So I think it depends on the individual. I think, again, one of the barriers to employment for people who are neurodiverse is qualifications, but also the interview process. I think we're very much still geared towards neurotypical selection processes. So, for example, if you're in an interview and somebody will ask you questions, you'll be judged on your ability to answer that in a very kind of concise and direct way. And I, for example, will go around all the houses, and maybe then just not actually answer those. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? And I think having not known the question coming, because you're not, I don't feel that you're on a level playing field because some people just don't work like that. You need time to formulate that, or if you miss it, and even things like I have a real difficulty maintaining eye contact with people, and this can come across to a panel as being disinterested, or just not able to, like say, kind of make that point on the spot. Talking about if people ask you in an interview about kind of hypothetical kind of scenarios, that can be difficult as well. I think it's much easier if places ask you to draw on kind of lived experiences and understanding of or reflecting on a situation that you've been in. So yeah, I think there are routes of employment that may suit people neurodivergent. But again, it depends on the individual. But I think largely the problem with people accessing employment opportunities is about the processes that exist that are quite detrimental and put people at a disadvantage.
Yeah, as a hiring manager, I think that's something that I definitely need to try and make sure I'm more aware of. I think we try, but sometimes we need to make sure that we're hitting all of those kind of points, because if someone comes into an interview with me, it is, in my opinion, my role to give them the chance to show their best ability and their best self to me. I don't like to go into an interview with someone like I'm trying to catch them out on stuff they don't know. That's not. I mean, there are people out there like that. I have been interviewed by people like that who are like, I'm going to catch out the things that you don't understand. And if there's things that we as hiring managers and panelists, there are things that we need to think about, and if someone is struggling, it is also up to us to say, I think there's, see, this is the go around the houses, Emma, we've talked about this before. We also have to have the confidence to say, are you okay? Do you need a minute? What can we help? How can we help maybe a little bit with that? And I think we have that responsibility. So we have to have the confidence to do that as well, to be the one that says, okay, stop for a second, you're not in trouble. This is not a bad thing. Is everything going okay? If we can see that someone is struggling. And I think we are taught as hiring managers maybe that's not what you should do, but it's just that being kind thing, isn't it, to anyone who walks through the door. So we've talked a little bit about careers and employability, and I want to talk a little bit about your job now, actually, Emma.
Okay.
Kind of bring it back round in that. So obviously, you, as you've said, you are neurodiverse yourself. Have you found that it means that you kind of maybe teach differently or deal with students differently to your colleagues? Have you noticed that it has an impact? And, do you actively make those choices? Or, because, I mean, obviously you are, as we've said before, lovely. And I know that you are one of our academics who will always try and make your students feel very comfortable. But do you maybe approach that slightly differently than your colleagues because of your lived experience?
I mean, I feel, Arden, I feel very fortunate to, to be part of the school, and this is what I see reflected across Arden. Everybody's great, and really nice. And I think within the psychology school, I mean, all of my colleagues I know are very, very much student-centred and very kind of aware of difficulties that students may encounter, and are very approachable. So I don't think in terms of being different in the way that I because they all are, that they're very open, they're very kind, they're very people are always putting in extra support, or thinking of kind of different ways to make teaching and resources more accessible. I think that people don't speak about what they experience often enough, and I think we need to share that to be supportive of others, and I think kind of break down those barriers and say, well, yes, we all have difficulties, and that's that's okay. That's okay. Don't let that impact on you or make you feel get you down, or just that we're here to talk about this. Because I think I think the most difficult things I always felt as a student was that actually I'm not keeping up, or I don't understand this, or if I ask this, will it sound right, or if I if I write this in a certain way, what will how will this be? It's I think it's really important to be able to say it. And when I was a student, it was never discussed. It was never discussed. I mean, I went for an assessment because I saw a leaflet on it initially, and I think I like I say, I think it's really important to have that kind of open dialogue, and say, yeah, things can be difficult, but there's also a lot of positives, and it's important to have that kind of self-acceptance, and to be able to talk to people who also experience this. I think that's really important.
Definitely. So I feel like from listening and speaking to you today, so one of our questions, which I'll ask in a second, is about how neurodiversity could be a superpower. And from listening to you, it sounds to me like one of the superpowers that it creates is the superpower just to be able to have open and honest communication, which is not necessarily specific to neurodiversity, but I feel like this is something that should be applied to all people in the workplace, in education, in your social lives, anywhere. But I wondered, so that's what I took from it, but I was wondering if for you, so how do you think neurodiversity is a superpower, and how it enables people to think differently and approach challenges in a different way?
Okay, so in terms of neurodiversity, I think it can be a real journey for people, because like I say, the living in a society that's not necessarily designed for you can kind of really impact on your confidence as an individual. And I think what you kind of need to take from that, I mean, maybe people have difficulty, like I say, everyone's different, may have difficulties processing, they may have difficulties in social interactions, realising the things that you are good at, and kind of being in an environment that recognises that, I think. And what I've noticed with colleagues that I've worked with over the years who are neurodivergent is, and like I say, it's not the same for everybody, you will have these very kind of conversations. It's almost like we were saying that if you feel that you don't fit into a society, you don't feel the need to do that. So you'll see something, and you'll say, well, actually, this isn't right, or this is what could make things better. And I think quite a few of the people that I know are quite focused on social justice, kind of wanting to make a difference, but also the conversations, they can be very creative, very funny, if I'm speaking to a group of people who are also neurodivergent, it's like you automatically feel more relaxed, I think, because people do get where you're coming from, and you can kind of share those stories. And I think it's creativity, it's the kind of ability to kind of cut through things, say actually this isn't right,
Emma, you've said it today. Hannah said it in our mental health podcast. Phil said it when we were talking about pride. Talk about things, have the conversation, and we, as a staff, I like to think, do create these spaces, or try and create these spaces to have that chat. And I think it's a really important message that it keeps coming up in our podcast. Talk to us, talk to each other, talk to your tutors, talk to your friends, talk to your pet, talk to someone. And if you don't have someone to talk to, come and ask us. There will be someone that you can talk to, and it might be scary, and it might be intimidating, it might be all those things. But I think these episodes and the conversation that we have always come back to talk to us, have the conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that's lovely, Kate. And I agree. Like, kind of the experiences I've had, like at Arden, is that there is that open dialogue, and I think the inclusion is very much kind of at the centre of everything that they do, and that kindness to each other, and I think that's the core, isn't it? Really, it's that's so important.
Oh, I've thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I feel really full of good vibes now.
Just Emma, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. It really was wonderful.
It.
Oh, thanks so much for inviting me. I've really enjoyed talking to you as well. It's been great. Thank you.
Excellent. Is there any kind of final message that you want to give, or have you got like any research or anything that you want to plug? We always give our kind of guests the opportunity to do that if there is anything that you have.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, in terms of final message, I think you covered it well. Just keep talking to each other, and like people to kind of realise that they're not alone. Things that we're doing, well, we have a neurodiversity network group that I run with Lucy on Sleeto, and we meet once a month. So if anybody would like to join that, and it's a really lovely group. We have guest speakers, but also it's just nice to be able to talk, to just come together and chat, and to be able to share. We've actually just had our neurodiversity PG cert validated, and so that that's in development, and it's going to be available next year, and that's going to be for all Arden employees as well, but also we're going to be offering it to organisations in education within the justice system, and there's a lot of conversations around that about development for masters, but also short courses. But we'll be keeping on updated with that.
Yeah, I think we've reached the end of the episode. So thank you very much for coming on the episode, Emma. Alicia, I was so glad to have you back. I missed you, friend. I'm glad that you're back here with me. So yeah, we really hope that you enjoyed the episode and that you'll join